And welcome to another season of Big Brother. I'm so happy it's finally here, season 26. So ready for it. I know y'all are too. Now, just like last year, I'm going to be doing the morning recaps. Every morning, I'll give a little 15, 20-minute assessment of what happened overnight. I'll be staying up, so y'all don't have to give you all the key conversations, things that happened as such. So be watching for that starting up once the live feeds do a little bit later this week. So happy we have live feeds down here in the States with Big Brother USA. So we will be doing those recaps. But while we're waiting for the two-night premiere episodes, they just released the cast. I wanted to give a little cast assessment based on nothing more than the photographs, the names, the hometowns, ages, etc., plus their interview questions. We'll talk about that. And isn't it amazing? Within just a few days, we're going to know everything about these house guests. There'll be people we're cheering for, those who we won't be cheering for quite as much. We'll know so much about them. Right now, it's all fresh. There are some recaps out there. They're an hour too long. Yeah, we're not doing that here. We're doing about a 15-minute recap just to let y'all know who we're going to be watching over the next 80 something days. All right. With that being said, first of all, let me say this. When someone says, "What is your strategy for playing Big Brother?" A strategy is not saying, "I'm going to play a really good social game, and when I have to, I'll win the competitions to stay alive." It's so much more than that. I have a feeling a lot of these house guests, it's easy to say I'm going to do that. It's harder to actually put that plan into action. Just as every single year, there's a lot of house guests that are going to be surprised at just how difficult playing the game of Big Brother could be, will be, and we're going to be here for every bit of it. All right. One quick mention about the demographics that I'm really excited this year. We still have the same diversity rules that CBS did, so applause to them for that. We do have a very diverse cast, but not just in terms of ethnicity, in terms of geography and such. In terms of age, I think they've done a fantastic job again this year. I counted it up. We've got 8 house guests that are 30 years or older. We've got 8 house guests who are under the age of 30. Seems like a pretty nice little split, huh? Wish we'd had that kind of split during my season, but alas, wasn't to be. So 8 over the age of 30, 8 under the age of 30, which is going to make for a very interesting environment. Now, before we talk about the cast, we also heard a little bit more about the twist. Apparently, these 16 house guests are going to have the option somehow. They're going to decide whether or not to vote in a 17th house guest. I don't know why you would choose to have one more person in that house potentially winning the big prize unless there's some kind of incentive motivation to cast that vote. We'll find out during these first couple of nights of the premiere episodes. We'll find out at that point in time. It could be an AI intelligence is coming in 17th house, guys. I don't know. We're going to find out. But not for another day or two. We're here to talk about the cast. So let's just get right into it with that. Again, we're going quick, so I'm not going to spend more than about a minute or so per house guest. And we're going to be doing this in alphabetical order. First house guest we have is Angela. She's 50 years old, originally from California. Now she lives in Utah. She's a real estate agent. She talks about the fact that she's really good at reading faces. She'll always know when people are scheming against her. Well, first of all, assume that people are always scheming against you because they probably are. And two, it's not as easy to pick up on that as we think. She may prove me wrong. I hope a lot of these cast members prove me wrong with the assessments, stereotypes, and assumptions that we're making out here. But she says she'll always be able to tell when people are scheming against her. We'll see. I do think that she is a mom. So I think that plus her age, she's going to be taking on the mom role in the house, whether she wants it or not. I don't think that's always a bad thing, but I think she'll be kind of the mom of the house for a while. So we do have that. I am worried that she may not last long. She's not the oldest person in the house. I think she could be an early boot. In fact, I'm trying to make some guesses on whether someone's going to be pre-jury, early jury, or final five. I think Angela, as much as she thinks she'll be able to tell when people are, first of all, even if you know people are scheming against you, you still have to figure a way to get beyond the scheming itself. I don't know that she'll be able to do that. I am calling her as a pre-jury boot, and let's just start it out and get it out of the way. I'm calling for Angela to potentially be the first boot of the season. No one wants to be the first boot, and don't throw pitchforks at me, but someone has to be first. I think it could be Angela. I hope she proves me wrong. But Angela, 50 years old, real estate agent. I'm always going to cheer against the older folks, but I think she's got a tough road to hoe here. All right, so Angela, 50, from Utah, real estate agent. Maybe not my pick for the winner's pick just yet. All right, number two of the cast, we've got Brooklyn Rivera. Brooklyn, but she's from Dallas. I have a feeling that's going to confuse me somewhere down the road. Brooklyn is 34 years old. She's originally from Georgia. Now keep that in mind because we got couple other people from Georgia as well. But Brooklyn originally from Georgia. Now she's in Dallas, business administrator, but she may have had, based on some comments I've heard, she may have a little pageant experience as well. So we'll see how it works. And she's 34, but she also is a married mom. Does that mean the two moms, her and Angela, may make a connection early? Could be, and that could help Angela going forward a little bit as well. But Brooklyn is a mom as well. She's a big fan of Big Brother. I think that's going to help her out. She's in an interesting position. She's 34 years old, so she's right there in the middle between those 8 that are under the age of 30 and the top half of the house. I think that may help her in terms of interacting with both sides of the group. And I'm not saying that it's going to turn into an old versus young, although there were a lot of people that talked about age during these interviews. So I could see a little bit of that happening. We'll find out. But I think she's going to be able to interact with from the youngest to the oldest. And I think that's going to help quite a bit. Now, she may start off, she called herself badassy, sassy, badassy, a little bit of all of that. Uh, she seems like she could be one that may start off playing a little fast, a little hard, which could give her power early, could get her in with the right groups. Also, could lead to some dangerous getting a target put on you a little bit early. But we will find out about that. I think she'll last for a while. I think she'll do all right. I'm calling for an early jury finish for her, which basically means making it past jury but not making it top 5. So I'm calling Brooklyn to last a while, but not to the end. All right. Next person we've got, next house guest, is one of my favorites. We've got Cam. I hope it's Cam and not Cameron, just so it don't confuse from last season on. We've got Cam. He's 25 years old. He's from Maryland. He's a physical therapist. Physical therapy, that's giving, that's compassion, everything else, right? I think that bodes well for him. Seems like a really nice guy. A heck of a smile on him. Just a charismatic guy. He's the first single person that we saw in the cast release, first single guy. He mentioned being open to a showmance. Hey, I think it's bound to happen. We will find out, but he did mention that. He also mentioned the word jock in describing himself. He's talked about a whole lot of other things. Suave, I think he mentioned at one point. There's a lot of things to Cam, but he did mention jock at one point. So I think he's going to be an athletic player in this game. Now, here's what I really liked about Cam. He mentioned in terms of strategy, he actually had a thought out strategy beyond just, well, I'm going to play a good social game. He wants to join in an alliance, which everyone does at the start, but he wants to join an alliance with the older house guest. He thinks that's going to benefit him. I think that is brilliant. Having been an older house guest in the house, I think most of the older players are desperate to find a group to join up to, knowing that it's easy to be ostracized, to be isolated if you're older than the other folks. So I think people are going to be all on board working with him. I think he'll be welcomed with open arms. Those older house guests may rely on Cam winning a few physical competitions to keep them alive. In exchange, he's going to have a lot of votes protecting him. I think that's going to position Cam well. I think it's a fantastic strategy. So we will see. Now, he did mention that he's very competitive with the way he plays everything. Is he going to be able to tone down his competitiveness early on so that he doesn't make himself a target too early? I think so. We'll watch and see. As I mentioned, he's got a great smile, a very charismatic guy, very positive about everything he talked about. I'm predicting a top 5 finish. I'll even go so far as to say I think he may be a final 2 competitor. I see lots of good things for Cam going forward. I'm excited to watch this guy play. All right, next house guest we've got in the house is Cedric. Cedric is originally from California. He lives in Idaho now. 21 years old. As far as I know, he's the youngest house guest this season. A former Marine. I assume he probably joined the Marines right out of high school at 18, served 2 years, got out. So he is fresh out of the Marine Corps and ready to play the game of Big Brother. Here's what I like about Cedric. He talked about going in, part of his strategy is having the ability to adapt. I think that's fantastic. You don't really know what's going to happen until you get in that house and see who you're playing with, what twists are and such. And he recognizes that. He really focused on adaptability as opposed to any specific strategy. And I'm okay with that. I think that's good. Being 21, is that going to make it a little bit tougher because of his young age? Make it tougher for him to as easily manipulate and influence the other people in the house? It could be, and I think that's a bit of a con to him. It's just that his young age. He does seem to be self-aware, though. He talks about the fact that he's going to basically try to play up on his age a little bit. He wants to be the lovable guy that no one thinks is a huge target. So he's going to play that up, and that may work to his advantage. I'm calling for him to make it to jury, but probably an early jury boot at that point in time. All right, next house guest that we have is Chelsea. Chelsea, I think it's Chelsea. 27 years old. She's from California, a nonprofit director. She mentioned the fact that she's big on the social game. She talks about that she wants to use her power, her relationships to basically control every other relationship in the house. She seems very competitive, very focused on winning, which is, you got to be positive. You've got to be able to envision it to make it happen, I think. But she does seem very competitive. When asked to describe herself, some of the words that she used was crazy and fun and loud. I think she's going to be a lot of fun in the house. I think she's going to be someone very interesting to watch the whole time. She's going to keep everyone on their toes, and she'll be a lot of fun in the house. Now she is a super fan, and I don't know if she described herself as that, but she does describe herself as a Big Brother fan. I think that'll help. I think it's going to carry her through a lot of the game. I'm going to call her an early jury boot, but I could see her lasting right up to number 6 or 7, somewhere around the double eviction, somewhere like that. I think Chelsea's going to do pretty well. I know she's going to be a fun one to watch. All right. Next house guest we've got is Joseph, which I'll just call him Borat for right now. Yeah, well, is he going to bring a mankini in the house? I don't. Joseph or Joe, I'm not sure what it is, but he's got the Fu Manchu mustache. Reminded me a lot of Borat in the still photo. He's from Florida. He's 30 years old. He's a video store clerk. Now, video store clerk. I don't know about the rest of the country, but here in Houston, the only video stores that I know that are still open tend to be, we'll just call them specialty stores that most people don't spend a lot of time going inside. Uh, Wink, wink. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah, who knows? I'm curious to see what kind of video store he works at. Is there still a lot of demand for VCRs and videotapes? We'll find out. It could be vintage. It could be comics and vintage VCRs. We'll find out. But Joseph is a video store clerk. Now, here's what I thought was interesting about Joseph, and it shows some real self-awareness that I think is important. He says that he feels like he's good enough in all stages of the game, and we're talking social game, mental challenges, physical challenges. He feels like he's good enough to be competitive in all of those and to do well, but he doesn't think that he's so great in any one of those that he'll necessarily stand out. So as a result, he doesn't think that he'll be able to fly under the radar a little bit. He'll be able to win some of these things when he needs to, but at the same time, he's not going to create too big a target because he recognizes that he's not just the super jock that everyone's going to be focused on at the beginning. I think that's a good thing to think about yourself and adapting your play based on that. He says he's going to play low key to start and only turn up the heat a little bit later. There's a lot of people that start off playing low key. I think he may be able to get away with it. He is a super fan. He talked about how he loves the game of Big Brother. He's obviously aware of past seasons and such. But he says he's not going to say anything. He's going to try to keep it under wraps. He also said that he's basically a decent guy, so he doesn't think that he'll say anything that gets him in trouble. I hope not. Let's have no TMZ type comments in this season of Big Brother. He's aware of that. He's a fan. He's aware of the live feeds, and he'll be on his best behavior. Here's what the other thing I like about Joseph is he talks about the fact he doesn't take life too seriously. I think that's good. I think you can't get too hyped up when you're playing this game. You've got to be willing to just kind of roll with the punches, and I think he's going to do that as well. I've got Joseph right now as early jury going out somewhere after the first five, but before we get to the final five. I think he could go a little further than that. I could see him potentially being final five, but for now, I've got him called out as an early jury boot. All right, next up, house guest. Got to cheer for this guy. He's the oldest house guest in the house this year. Kenny, 52 years old, from Boston, Massachusetts, an undercover cop. Now, let me first of all say this. Imagine the stories that we could get from Kenny telling about being an undercover cop all the years, all the adventures he's had doing that. Incredible stories that could keep those house guests entertained. But there isn't a chance in the world that he's going to actually admit that he's an undercover cop, right? I can't imagine. Not after Derek 116. I just don't see it happening. Is Kenny going to be a cop like Derek, or is he going to be more like Steve? What season is Steve? 18? I don't know. I can't remember now, but I don't think that Kenny's going to tell anyone that he's an undercover cop. If he doesn't, what is his story going to be when he comes into this house? We will find out. He talked about in his interview he wants to start off in a big alliance that the older people don't always get a chance to do. He wants to try to make that work. I can see him and Cam working together and being quite the dynamic duo and going far in this game. I see both of them looking for the other and doing something like that. So I think he's going to do well. He mentions that his job as an undercover cop is manipulating people. So this is right up his alley, and I think he's right. So I think he's going to do well. I'm calling Kenny a final five finish. All right. Next up, a house guest. I'm really curious to see how he does. Kemo, 35 years old. He's from Hawaii. He's the only one that talked about being gay. There's probably others. I kind of like the idea that it's no big deal one way or the other nowadays. But he does mention that he's from Hawaii. He's a mattress salesman. I think I said 35. This guy has a lot of energy. He is just almost over the top with his energy. He plans to adapt, which I think is always good as the house goes on, as depending on what's going on in the house. I think that's important. I have a feeling that just based on the energy level that Kemo brought into this house or brought onto that interview, I have a feeling that he's going to be one of the people in the house that's really going to stir the pot and create some drama in that house. Now, that could be dangerous if it ever gets back to you, that it was you doing that. But on the other hand, if you stir that pot just right, you can get fingers pointed at different people and create a lot of chaos while you step back and watch the damage and the hilarity ensue. It does seem like Kemo's going to be pushing the envelope a little bit. Again, lots of high energy. I think he'll make it past the pre-jury. I'm calling him to be a jury boot, but not necessarily top five. But he's another one I think is going to be a lot of fun to watch. All right, next we've got house guest Leah. Not real sure which way it's pronounced. I'm just going to call her Brittany Haynes because she looked very much like Brittany in her still photo. It's the first thought I had when I saw her. So we'll just say the Brittany look-alike. She's much more than that. I have no doubt whatsoever. She's 26 years old, originally from Pittsburgh, now working in Miami. She's a VIP cocktail server. There's some good money to be made doing that, right? We've had a few of those over the seasons. But a VIP cocktail server, I have a feeling that she could be a recruit. She didn't really specify anyone when asked about who she maybe was going to model her game after. I just don't know that she knows as much about the game of Big Brother as other people do. She does talk about manipulating inside the house is going to be natural because she's a natural manipulator. We'll see. I have a feeling that Leah could be showman's potential. I could see her identifying some guys and maybe using that to help her game a little bit. If I think she could go home very early. I'm calling her as a pre-jury boot. If she gets in this showmance, or if she can survive the first few weeks, showmance or not, then she maybe will pick up on the game and last a little bit longer. But I have a feeling that she just doesn't know the game well enough to survive those first few weeks. So I'm calling for Leah to be a pre-jury boot. All right, next house guest we've got is Lisa, 33 years old, from Los Angeles, California, a celebrity chef. Chef's always nice to have in the house, right? Now, she's another person I think could be a recruit. I don't know that for certain. I just don't feel like she knows the game quite as well as some other folks that someone may have brought her in. She could be fun. She'll certainly serve quite the purpose. How making food for other folks. People always are appreciative of that. Especially when you first get in the house, you're not sure exactly how the meals and such are going to go. But after a few weeks, I don't know that someone cooking food for you is going to be as big a deal as it is at the beginning. People are going to start focusing more and more on the games and the alliances and everything else. Being a chef or not isn't going to be as big a difference, but it may be enough to help Lisa through those first few weeks. And if that happens, then anything can happen from that point on. But I just think Lisa may not quite a lot like Leah may not have the background in Big Brother to really be able to survive the first part. So I'm calling for her as a pre-jury boot. All right, next up, next house guest, McKenzie, 22 years old, from Houston, Texas. So of course I'm gonna be cheering for McKenzie. Gotta be so rough though. They probably snatched her right as a hurricane barrel was coming through here. She may have been snatched from her house without electricity or anything else. That's a tough way to start the game of Big Brother. But McKenzie, 22 years old, from Houston, a construction project manager. Don't think she's a big super fan, Big Brother fan. She talked about watching the game only recently, which sometimes is code for once I realized I was going to be on the show, I watched a whole lot of seasons as quickly as I could online. I think there's a possibility that she could be another recruit, which is going to make it a little bit difficult for her. She talks about that she's going to start off shy, that she's going to be sweet and friendly to everyone. She's going to be a shoulder for other people to cry on. So that's the game plan that she's got going forward. She's another person that's single. I think there's showmance potential. I could see her and Cam perhaps becoming an item. Now, she's from Houston. Brooklyn's from Dallas. Is there a chance that these two women could form an alliance based on that Texas connection? Perhaps, but McKenzie's 22 and single. Brooklyn is 34, 35 from Dallas, so a little bit different stages in life. I'm sure they'll be friendly with one another. Don't know if they'll be tight alliances, but we'll see if the Cowboy connection maybe can make something happen. I don't know that it necessarily will. I've got McKenzie as a pre-jury finish at this point in time. But we'll see. Prove me wrong, McKenzie. I want you to do well. I want a Houston winner that we can celebrate down here in H Town. All right, next house guest we've got Matt. Matt is 25 years old from Georgia. Remember Brooklyn, originally from Georgia before she moved to Dallas. Could that lead to a bit of a connection between the two? I think in the beginning of this game, everyone's looking for anything that could help link them up with other people. I'm sure they'll talk about it, and I think that will help. But Matt is 25 years old. Matt talks about the fact, I think he's the one who said that he's got a very older dad. He talks about how he really gets along well with older people, that he's going to be looking for that mom figure in the house. I could see Matt and Angela working well together and perhaps forming a bit of a duo in this game. And as long as Angela can last a little while, I think it will benefit them both. But again, she may not last as long as Matt would like. But Matt's going to be probably working more with the older people, he believes, in the house. He talks about the fact that he likes to make people laugh. He seems like a very nice guy. I've got Matt as an early pick to potentially be America's favorite pick. Now, they turn out to be completely the opposite, and I'll feel like an idiot for suggesting it. But for right now, I've got Matt doing pretty well. I've got him at Final Five finish and possibly America's favorite choice as well. He talks about the fact that he's aware that there's going to be stereotypes about him. They're going to look at him as a bro. He's from Georgia, from the South, that people are going to make a lot of assumptions about him, and he wants to prove them wrong. That's what I like here. Because I felt the same way when I went into the house. I think Matt is aware of how he's going to be perceived. He's going to make that work to his advantage. So I've got him as a Final Five finish. All right, next up in the house, Quinn, 25 years old, from Oklahoma, a nurse recruiter. This is my wild card pick. This Quinn is the person I think is going to be the guy that surprises me that I completely make wrong assumptions about. I think that's going to be Quinn this season. He talks about the fact that he wants to align with emotional players. That's scary to me as an analytical guy. I couldn't do it. Quinn thinks that's going to help him to align with those type of folks. We'll see. It's a different strategy, but he has thought it through. He talked a lot about there's four kinds of players: rats and snakes and frogs and rabbits or something. I don't remember. He had different players. He's obviously thought his strategy through quite a bit. Again, he wants to align with the emotional players. I think that's going to be a little dangerous. He also talked about how he wants to be very zany and crazy in the house, always be the guy that's just ramped up to 11 on the dial and such. Uh, that can be fun, and as long as people are enjoying that can. No one wants to get rid of the fun guy, right? But sometimes if you do that too much, people get tired of it. Once you get cabin fever, you're locked in that house forever, and sometimes that can be a con as well. I think Quinn is going to be a pre-jury vote, but he is counting on being seen as naive in the house. That he's just crazy, zany Quinn that doesn't really care about playing the game of Big Brother. He's counting on that as part of his strategy to be seen as naive. In reality, he's been a fan. He said since season 11. Again, he's the wild card. He's the person I'm calling as a early jury, not pre-jury, but I'm calling as an early jury boot. But he could prove me wrong. He's the one I just can't get a handle on right now. All right, next in the house we've got Rubina, 35 years old, from Los Angeles. She's a bartender. She talks about the fact that she's not a huge fan, not a super fan or anything like that. She's another one that I think maybe doesn't have a lot of exposure to Big Brother. She talks a lot about, everyone talks about Big Brother. She wants to bring big sis energy into the house. She spent a lot of time talking about her Filipino roots and how that's going to help her being friendly and everything with the rest of the house. She does mention that she's competitive, but she's kind of just mildly competitive. I don't know that she's got that killer streak that it's going to take to win this game. I've got Rubina being a pre-jury vote in this house. All right, next house guest that we've got is T-Core. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. T-Core, 23 years old, from Chicago, but originally from London. And you'll pick that up in her accent. Originally from London, then in Chicago, but now apparently living in Atlanta. Yet another Georgia connection. We'll see if that pays off, if she can establish some connections based on her location where she is right now. She's an owner of a crochet business. Her interview, she was wearing a crocheted top with a little crocheted heart and all that. This, I think, T-Core is going to be the eclectic, the quirky person in the house. She's going to be seen as the quirky girl. I think she's going to be absolutely underestimated. I don't know that she's going to win a lot of competitions, but I don't think she's going to need to win a lot. I think people are going to overlook her. She'll just be the friendly person that's kind of funny in the house, that's just not a threat. People are going to be looking at other targets. I think she could fly under the radar for a long time. I'm calling for a top 5 finish for T-Core. I'll even say I could see her maybe being a top 3 finish. I can see her making it all the way to the final night. And then we may have a little bit of a bromance that boots her out at that point in time. I think T-Core is going to be fun to watch. I could see her potentially being America's favorite as well. I think people, maybe they'll fall in love with her. We'll find out. I think she's going to be fun to watch. And finally, our final house guest of the 16 that we know about so far, Tucker, 30 years old, from Boston. I think now he lives in Brooklyn, but originally from Boston. There's a connection. Boston, Kenny and Boston Tucker start talking about the Red Sox, and they may latch on to each other immediately at that point in time. Of course, he's in Brooklyn. Can you be a Yankees fan and a Red Sox fan? I don't think so. But Tucker, 30 years old, originally from Boston. He's a marketing exec. I do see him and Kenny talking about a lot of similarities and probably working well together. I think they're going to, I think you could easily see Tucker and Cam and Kenny as a trio in this game and working well together and helping each other all the way to the very end. Now, Tucker did say that he's a chef. I don't think it's a professional. He just likes to cook at home. He comes from a very competitive Italian family. He did remind me a little bit of Tommy Bracco and his enthusiasm and such. But Italian family, they're very competitive. They play card games whenever they're together. He loves to cook big fancy family meals. So watch out, Lisa, the celebrity chef. You got someone else who feels comfortable about their ability to provide for the rest of the house. And yeah, cook up a big old Italian pasta and a spaghetti meal and such for everyone else in the house. They're going to fall in love with Tucker. I think Tucker's going to do well. It's not just the cooking. He also talked about that he's a lighthearted jokester, which I think is going to carry him well. He did call himself obnoxious at one point. That he can be obnoxious. I think it's important that you realize maybe what some of your potential cons are. And it sounds like he can do that. If he can rein that in, I think he's the one that referred to himself as kind of a Jim Carrey type person. But that's dangerous. I'm not sure I'd want to stay in a house with someone for the entire 3 months that's that level of over the top. But he's aware of that. If he can rein that in a little bit, I think he's going to do well. He's going to go far. Here's what does it for me. At the end of the interview, Tucker compared himself not to Dan, not to Derek, all the people that other folks always like to compare themselves to. Tucker compared himself to Ian Terry. That right there does it for me. The analytical guy, he talked about how Ian was quiet and yet he was able to step in, make the moves against Boogie and do what he had to do to win the game. And Tucker sees himself doing the same thing. I had Tucker as a top 5 finish. Once he starts comparing himself to Ian Terry, I think that shows a knowledge and awareness that takes him to the next step. So I started off with Angela potentially being the very first boot in this game. I'm going to finish it up with Tucker as my winner pick. Now, sometimes I get it right, sometimes I don't. I did pick Jag last season cast assessment to win it. Let's see if I can do it 2 in a row. I think Tucker's going to do fantastic. I think people are going to fall in love with him in the house. I think he's athletic enough to win the comps when he needs to as well. And I think he's got the social game to make it happen. We'll find out. So there you have it, guys. 16 house guests. That's all we know about him now. A week from now, you're going to know everything possible about these guys' sleep schedules, bathroom schedules, what they like to eat, what they don't like to eat, who's loud, who's not. We'll know everything. But for right now, there you go. Let me know what you think. What did I get right? What did I get wrong? Post in the comments what your own feelings are, and we'll compare it at the end of the season. Guys, I'm so excited. Wednesday night, premiere night, and then we'll see how it all goes. Until then, guys, have a great one. Cheers, my friend. Here's to another season of Big Brother. Join me for the ride. It's going to be fantastic. All right, guys, until next broadcast, SKD 143. Cheers, my friends.